Okay, Legend of Kevin, Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is called Max. Have we mentioned that Kevin the Flying Pony was a bit plump? Well, Kevin the Flying Pony was a bit plump, so he hadn't been hurt too badly when he hit the side of Kevin's building. He just kind of bounced off. But he was rather startled. He had never met a tall building before. He thought it must be a special kind of cloud made out of bricks. Feeling a bit dazed and confused after his wild journey through the sky, he fluttered down onto the nearest balcony to have a rest. Unfortunately, he landed rather awkwardly and bumped his wing. The balcony was the balcony outside Max's bedroom. It was the biggest bedroom in the flat, and it had been Daisy's, but she said it looked much too cheerful when the sunlight streamed in through the windows, so she let Max have it. She had moved into his old bedroom, which she had painted black. There wasn't any sunlight streaming in when Max opened the curtains because it was still the middle of the night. There wasn't even any moonlight because it was still raining hard, and the sky was full of fat, black, hurrying clouds. There was only the dim orange glow of the street lights below. It was just bright enough for Max to see that there was something on the balcony, and that the something was an animal. He fetched his torch, but the battery was going, so he still couldn't tell what sort of animal it was. For a moment, Max felt a little bit afraid. It looked like quite a big sort of animal. What if it turned out to be a fearsome polar bear? Don't be silly, he told himself. How could a fearsome polar bear have got all the way up here? But he opened the door onto the balcony very carefully, just in case. As soon as he stepped out onto the balcony, he could see that the animal wasn't a fearsome polar bear, or a fearsome anything. "You're a pony," he said. "But hang on, how did a pony get all the way up here?" Kevin flapped his little wet white wings. "Ow," he said. "Oh," said Max, "you're a flying pony." He had always thought winged horses were only in stories, but here was one on his balcony, and he could see that it needed his help. It looked all shivery and sorry for itself, and it kept twitching one of its wings. Very gently, Max stroked its soggy mane. "Do you have a name, little pony?" he asked. "Kevin," said Kevin. "You can talk," said Max, who hadn't really been expecting an answer. "Kevin," said Kevin, nodding wisely. "Where have you come from?" asked Max. Kevin just neighed very quietly. He knew a few words, but not enough to explain about the wild, wet hills of the outermost west, and the storm which had blown him out of his tree. "Well, you're in Bumbleford now," said Max. "That's the name of this town, and my name is Max." He tried stroking the pony's twitchy wing. "Ow," said Kevin. "I think you've sprained it, you poor thing," said Max. He stood and wondered what to do. He had always wanted to have an animal to look after, but now the one had arrived, he wasn't quite sure what to do. He thought he should ask Mum and Dad, but it was still the middle of the night, and he didn't want to wake them up. Besides, he already knew what the pony needed most. It needed to get inside, out of the cold and the wind and the rain. So he opened the door wide, and the pony stood up and came clip-clopping into his bedroom. Max fetched the towel from his swimming things bag and dried Kevin as best he could. Then he put his duvet over him to help keep him warm. "I expect you're hungry," Max said, "but I don't know what flying ponies eat. Do you eat hay like ordinary ponies? Or do you eat seeds and words and things like birds?" Kevin snorted and shook his head hard to get rid of the idea of eating worms. "Biscuits," he whinnied. "What sort?" asked Max. "Custard creams," said Kevin. That was a stroke of luck, because custard creams were Max's dad's favourite, too. There was a big tin of them in one of the cupboards in the kitchen. Leaving Kevin to shiver under his duvet, Max crept to his bedroom door and let himself out. The hinges of the door squeaked a bit, but he didn't think anyone would hear over all the noise the wind was making as it howled and hooed around the outside of the flat. He tiptoed past the room where Mum and Dad were sleeping, past Daisy's door with its "No little brothers and vampires welcome" signs. crossed the corner of the living room and went into the kitchen. Quiet as a mouse, he opened the cupboard, opened the biscuit tin and took out the custard cream. Then he took another one because he thought a flying pony as fat as Kevin might be able to manage 2 biscuits. Then he took a third because he thought maybe he should have one himself to keep Kevin company. Max was very thoughtful like that. He was just tiptoeing back across the living room with the biscuits in his hand when a voice whispered, "Isn't it wonderful?" And that's chapter